The other day I was having to think. I remember this game I played when I was a kid, but for the life of me could not remember the name of it. I knew it had zombies, which for 2008 to 2011 didn't really narrow it down. It was top-down, survival, browser-based, and had like a moving from town to town gameplay loop. Once I remembered that, I thought it was probably enough to get me somewhere if I looked it up. So I made a post on r/tip of my joystick, and a few minutes later 100 screaming frogs helped me out. Then, before I knew it, there it was. Dead Frontier was released on open beta on the 21st of April 2008. The lead developer Neil Yates had released several Flash games in a similar top-down shoot zombie style that you can still play within Dead Frontier. At age 21, he started Creaky Corps Limited, a one-man game publishing company probably best known for Dead Frontier. Some interviews are floating around the time that the game was garnering a following, but the long story short is that this guy was a hustler. Making an MMO as an indie dev is pretty much impossible. If you're asking yourself, why haven't I heard of this game? I wouldn't blame you. From my research, Dead Frontier was never a super popular game despite the 10 million registered accounts talking point. Frankly, I think a lot of those are bots. YouTube and gaming content was definitely in its infancy when Dead Frontier came out, but if you were watching gaming content at the time, it probably wasn't centered around Dead Frontier. Comparing it to something like Left 4 Dead 2 or COD Zombies, you can see how far from the mainstream this game was at the time. When I logged in, it didn't take long for the nostalgia to come flooding back to me. I wasn't as into the game as some others that came out at the time, but I remember being really impressed with the graphics for it running on a machine that probably looked like this. After some messing around in the menus, I made it into the inner city. But whenever I got there, I was completely lost. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, save for this quest which I had no idea how to access. So I just walked around for a bit, stabbing zombies and looting cars. It didn't take long to get pretty bored of that, so I head back to the safe house to see if anything I had collected would actually be useful. With prices like this in the store, if it wasn't already obvious, I wasn't very far along in the game. Shortly after getting back to Nastia's holdout, I get a second chance at doing a quest. This time, I'm supposed to be looking around an area where some people went missing, investigating their last location and all that. After a quick scroll through the wiki because I'm slow, I figured it out and I was on my way. I set back out into the inner city, and after a bit of walking, I found myself at the little box the wiki told me was my destination. I looked around for some sort of evidence of people being there and was met with an innocuous VHS tape. I didn't think anything of it and moved on. I wandered aimlessly, searched this apartment building, wandered aimlessly for a little longer, and killed some zombies for good measure. Finally, I noticed this towards the bottom left of my screen. Chalk it up to playing a 2008 game in 1440p, but I had no fucking clue that this was all I was going to get by way of a yay, you did the quest. I was probably dicking around for the better part of 20 minutes after finding this VHS tape before I noticed this microscopic text on my screen. After retrieving the VHS tape, I make my way back to the outpost and decide to hit the marketplace. I buy a new hat, jacket, and a fire axe, and now I'm an unstoppable force of nature. With a 20-minute quest only granting about $600, I thought I was going to be poor forever, until I noticed the challenges. 25k to kill some zombie dogs and some crispy zombies? No problemo. The wiki says the green zone's the best place to find the burned ones, so that's where we're going to head. I quickly learned that getting around in this game is a slow-moving nightmare. On the one hand, I appreciate the sense of scale that it gives the map, but on the other, the scale grows stale when the different sections of the map feel so samey. The first time you venture out into the open world, there's a sense of tension and hesitance to draw attention to yourself. You don't know what the zombies might throw at you. This was especially reinforced by a zombie horde spawning whenever I went out on one of my first missions. By venture number 3, however, I'm just starting to feel like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I'm not sure why I'm going on the streaks to whack zombies. That said, at this point, I'm early enough in the game that I can be cautiously optimistic that some of the why will materialize sooner or later. I haven't even touched the MMO portion of the game yet. It wasn't until I wrote that sentence that it dawned on me that this is an MMO. It feels really classic, not by way of like World of Warcraft or anything, but in a niche, tightly knit sort of way. Real life people play the game. Dead Frontier isn't a graveyard, it's a time capsule. This really hit me whenever I was minding my business at Nastia's and a loud-ass siren ruptured my eardrums. The outpost is under attack. Holy shit. Zombieland style, nutting up or shutting up? Oh yeah. At the end of the day, it wasn't too dissimilar from the hordes I encountered earlier in the inner city, but it was still pretty cool. I got a good reason to burn through about half of my Uzi ammo and rack up a quick level along the way. I touched on this earlier, but I feel the need to mention it again. It takes forever to move from place to place on this map. I'm talking like major outposts in the early game. It took 45 minutes for me to get from Nostia's to Dog Stockade. I'm sure that at some point the difficulty spikes, and that 45 minutes is spent mostly trying to survive the endless hordes of zombies. But where I'm at right now, it was just a slow march. The slow movement and the large maps make the trips feel really grounded and immersive, but you really need to participate in the quests and challenges to have a good time on your way to and from major points. My optimism paid off pretty soon because Materialize the Why did. Once I was at Dogs, the rewards for quests seemed a lot more enticing, and the inner city seemed a lot more dangerous. It's about now that I realized the staleness that I was complaining about was due largely in part to the first portion being more or less a tutorial area. I also noticed that I had huge stat boosts active that are normally not there. Leveling up to 15 isn't typically something you can do in a day or two from what I've gathered, and consequently, I was pretty overpowered compared to the danger level of the starting area. That brief glimpse of tension that I felt when I first started playing came back in full swing when every street that you traverse is packed full of zombies. I'm even seeing mini-bosses at this point, including Big Guy, Claw Guy, and has Giant Sword for Arm Guy. These fuckers did not want to die. My guns were drawing so much unwanted attention. By now, Dead Frontier is really starting to show its teeth. Returning to the purpose of this expedition, Dog, presumably no longer in the bounty hunting trade, sent me off to go find some chemicals. A quick look at the map told me that I was in for a bit of a hike around this giant blocked off spot before I could get to my quest objective. I inevitably get sidetracked, and this apartment building decided to make me rich. Once I finished collecting every goodie the building has to offer, I found myself back on the road to get this shit done. One of the things that I failed to realize when I took this job is that each chemical needed an individual slot in order to collect them all and bring them home safe. Shortly after I figured that out, I cleared out my backpack and stuffed it full of the mystery car liquid. Needless to say, I made it back to Dog Stockade a wealthier man than when I left. At the time of writing this, I have about 4.5 hours in the actual game. MMOs are difficult to write about in a video format like this, but I think I've gotten a pretty good feel for the game, and I think by now I provide a pretty accurate look into the early game experience, a make or break point especially for a free-to-play time-sink MMO. Dead Frontier is an MMO of its time. It's about as simple as it gets in terms of mechanics and gameplay, but has such a strong foundation that it's not hard to have a good time while you play. There are a lot of features and mechanics that I didn't even touch on, such as boss raids, building an outpost, PvP, starting or joining a clan, and definitely some stuff I don't even know about. If you're interested in playing Dead Frontier after this video, there's an active Discord server. While I was making the video, there were constantly people chatting in general and talking in the voice channels. It's also worth mentioning that there is a sequel, Dead Frontier 2, on Steam that's also free. I haven't played it, but I might also make a video covering that game. So, like I said, Dead Frontier was a game I played a little bit as a kid, and I really enjoyed it. So, I know by like video essay standards, this video's not very long, but I plan to make more of them in the future, and kind of making this a regular type of video you might see on the channel. So, either way, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, just like and subscribe. Thanks.